All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Impact Interview Podcast. I'm here with my guest, Josh Trahan. And this is actually the first day I've met Josh. I've heard about him in the CrossFit community. I've seen him here and there. So I'm really excited about today's interview. So welcome, Josh, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I figured we start today with the people that are watching or listening that maybe don't know who you are. You can give us a little backstory of who you are, what are you up to now, and how did you kind of get there?
All right. So my name's Josh Trahan. I right now own CrossFit Bro Bridge and CrossFit St. Landry. I'm from around here. Went to school in Opelousas. Went to high school in Opelousas. Moved back and forth between New Orleans and Lafayette as I was growing up. So I don't really have like this deep roots in any place. Ended up in Baton Rouge for like 10 years, so I have some familiarity with that area as well. And then kind of just ended up back over here through a series of events. So I ended up going into the Marine Corps like right after 9/11, and I was in the reserves, and we got activated in between 04 and 05. And when I got back from there, and actually probably kind of started before, but when I got back from there was some pretty serious issues, starting with alcohol and addiction and stuff like that. So that kind of carried on for like 8 years of sort of wandering, trying everything I could think of to try and fix myself or whatever. And went to some detoxes, had some wrecks, several DUIs in a row, and finally ended up in jail for the last time, and decided, I'd go into rehab, I'd go into like some detoxes, but I finally was like, I'll go to like a long term. I don't care if it's forever. Like I'm done, So it didn't happen right away, but over the next few months, I ended up in Georgia at a place. It was called Damascus, and it was weird. Like one of my things about getting sober was like, it had to be something that nobody else paid for, because I didn't want to owe anybody else. Like I felt like I owed everybody in my life already. And a big part of like the final piece that kind of broke me down and made me willing to go get some help. I had been divorced, I had a kid I didn't see, the arrest, all that stuff was piling up, getting older, never finishing school, and not knowing what I wanted to do, and family trouble and all that stuff. But towards the end, I had gained like 80 pounds. And, it came to a point where like I kind of looked in the mirror and it was like, you're not even, like I didn't even recognize myself anymore, Probably about 6 or 8 months before that, I ran into a guy that I had gone to high school with. He was like 2 or 3 years younger than me. His dad was my football coach, and we were really close. He joined the Marine Corps after I did, and he had just got back from Iraq, and we met up at UL, and I was just disgusted and bloated and sick, and he was all like hard, like in shape and stuff, and I guess he could see it in me, but he started telling me about CrossFit, and that he kind of found it over there. And I just remember him saying that he's like, yeah, you do these things called wall balls, and like you throw them up on the wall until you throw up and all this stuff. And like me with my personality, like that's actually like intriguing to me. Some people are
like a challenge,
fearful of that, but just I guess the way I am is like, and it sounds like you're kind of the same way, but whatever I'm going to get into, I'm going to get all the way into it. And so if I'm going to do like fitness, it's got to be the best fitness, or whatever it is, like it's going to be all the way. And this sounded kind of right up my alley. So I started reading about it. I started looking it up on the internet, and I started reading some of the old Glassman articles and finding out what this thing was really about. And something about it just like resonated with my spirit, man. It's just like, it got me going, and I hadn't felt that feeling in a long time. And so I looked up, there's an article on how to make your own like rings. And you take a PVC pipe and fill it with sand, and you put it in the oven, and for like 3 minutes or something, and then you bend it, and then you dump out the sand, and then you put the rope through it. So I did that. I put up a pull-up bar in my backyard, and I'm still drinking. I'm still like 80 pounds overweight, but I'm gonna start this like fitness thing, So I actually went to Cecilia's baseball field and hung him from a batting cage, backed my truck up to it, and like got in it to do like a ring dip, jumped off the back of my truck and just like flat on my face on the ground. And it was like, but it was all part of like the realization of like how, I guess how out of line my opinion of myself and who I actually was, how distorted that had become, you know, my opinion of my capabilities and who I was. And part of addiction and that kind of disease and personality type is just this distortion of like, you know, I want to be judged by my, I want to be judged by what I'm capable of or what I could do. You know, I want to be judged by my potential and not by what I actually do. And so in my head, I can live in what I think I can do, but in reality, everybody else just saw me as like a big fat drunk, you know.
But you knew like that's not who you were. That's just what was taking place that day.
Yeah, and that's what was driving me so crazy was I knew that I wasn't who I knew I could be, but I didn't know how to become it, you know. And that's where the help comes in. So, you know, finally looking at my physical capability and that being like the last thing to fall off. I mean, I was hypochondriac. I was at the doctor all the time, like thinking my liver was failing, which it was, and just freaking, you know, like I'm killing myself, but I'm scared I'm dying. So anyway, end up going to treatment, and the facility was like, you go there and you have to find a job and you have to work, and you live in the house, but it's not like you're cloistered, you know. So that was really important to me because I had to take on some responsibility, and it's like something happened, man, when you put me in that situation where it's like make it or break it kind of thing. You know, there's
Back
no
against
more.
the wall kind of deal.
That's it. Like there's no more enabling. It's just you and you, and it's like something kind of like woke up in me. And when I got there, I started trying to eat, you know, according to what I was reading on CrossFit. And I started trying to work out, but I wasn't really doing CrossFit yet. I wasn't sure about it yet. So I would get on main site and look at the workouts. I would actually sneak off from the house and sneak into the library and read stuff and download workouts and stuff. But I wouldn't do them because I felt like it wasn't enough. So I had like a bucket with some rocks in it, and I had a basketball that I had cut open and filled with dirt, like duct taped up. Yeah. But I was doing like old like bodybuilding stuff because that's all I knew, you know.
Because you still kind of had the mentality like, okay, that's still school, but you know, this way is still better.
Yeah, like I still wasn't convinced, you know, even though I'm reading all these articles about. And one thing that was fascinating to me was the idea that you could train for endurance with like glycolytic training or anaerobic training. So you can train these short, high intensity workouts, and you can go long at a reduced intensity, but it doesn't work the other way around. So if, you know, I came from the Marine Corps, I came from football, all that background, and you know, the Marines is like how far you can run was like a big deal and all that stuff. But this idea that I could get in shape, like cardio, muscle stamina, strength, all that at the same time. And
in a shorter time frame too.
Yeah, just high intensity and without dedicating 3 and 4 hours to working out every day. So at about, it was October of 2011, anytime I'm doing anything, I usually kind of get other people to do it with me. And so I was training some guys at the house, and I was like, it was October, and I was like, look, let's just take this month and just follow CrossFit, like as close as we can. So we started like on October 1st, and you can still go back to the main site from October like 2011, and one of the workouts to the very end of that month is run a 10K. And when it popped up, I was like, oh shit, like, there's no way. You know, like all I've been doing is thrusters and burpees. How the hell am I supposed to run? I've never run 10K in my life. You know, 3 miles is the longest I ever ran. But I was just in that mindset. It was like, let's see. And so I went out and I ran, and I was timing it. I ran, it was freezing cold. I had a mark that was like 1.5 miles, so I had to go like back and forth a bunch of times. I ended up running for like 1 hour and 20 minutes without stopping, and it was like, that was like the day I became a believer, because it was like, there's no way that I could do. I haven't trained for this.
For a 10K or 5K.
No, all my workouts were like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and So I was
that
like,
was kind of when you fully bought in
yeah.
to the process.
So that was like the end of it. But even when I started, like the first week just whooped my ass. I was like, I've been working out hard for like 3 months thinking I got it going on, doing my little sets of 10 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The first week of CrossFit, and CrossFit, it's deceiving because when you look at the workout, it's like this big. And you
You're
look
like,
at
oh,
my
that's
journal,
yeah.
exactly. Like I got all this stuff written, I'm doing all, I'm like, I'm doing way
this
more.
superset, tricep, like.
That's it. So you hit a CrossFit workout and you can't walk the next day. It's like, what the? Like, I'm nowhere near what I thought I was, you know? So it became a part of my, like, physical kind of program.
How big would you say, because you're coming out of all the, like, alcoholism and stuff like that, how big would you say CrossFit played a part in bringing you out of that? Like,
Yeah, it's tremendous. So I don't know how far into this you want to get, but the philosophy of CrossFit, I tell people all the time, and I actually teach a class now at a treatment center that is all along these lines, where the principles that we learn and practice in CrossFit is basically the same exact principles as recovery in AA. And so CrossFit for me became like a physical outlet or a physical representation of the things that I was learning spiritually, you know, in my life. And so they're hand in hand. I mean, I don't think you can have fullness without both, you know. I don't think you can be all that you can be without both. And there's a couple things you learn in recovery. One of them is let go of your ego. You know, that's a huge part of it. Accepting advice, you know, the power of community, accountability, you know, all those kind of things that are all there. Like, I tell people if the AA community or NA community or whatever, like, started a workout program, it would be CrossFit.
Yeah, right. As you were saying that, it's like, well, check. All that stuff takes place at
all the way
box.
down to the idea of let's just do what we need to do. Let's figure out how to, you know, the functionality of it is like, okay, what do I really need to be able to do? Let's just focus on that, because, you know, recovery a lot of times it just brings you back into real life. It's like, hey, like you're way the hell out here in your head and you don't even need all that. Like, this is it's the fundamentals. You know, and you start to realize like how powerful the fundamentals are, where if you just get really good at those, you can do anything off of that, you know. So it's huge. I mean, CrossFit's been huge in my recovery, and it's part of the kind of the next project that we're working on. So I came back from Georgia, and one thing led to another. Ended up having an opportunity to start CrossFit brokerage in the back of Gold's Gym. And, you know, we started getting people. It was kind of just starting to be the thing, and people started showing up, and we were hardcore, man. And like, I try to stick to what I believe to be the heart of CrossFit, you know, as much as possible. And we ended up moving out, and then we had our own space. Then we moved again because they sold that building, and then we finally built it, and now we're here. And then along the line, where we were kind of caught up in this location that wasn't ideal, I had a lot of stuff that I wanted to do and I couldn't do in there, so the opportunity for St. Landry came along, and I had a really good coach, Jordy, that was more than capable of kind of handling his own, so I had to get him enough, you know, because we had a lot of real goodness kind of bottled up in one place, so we just spread it out a little bit. And I mean, that's kind of the gist of it.
Just of where you're at now.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up a lot of good points that I want to like go back and touch on, but well, I guess first is just that last part you talked about. So how important is it, do you think, is having like a clear vision of what you want to do whenever, like, say you said you started on your own, then you're in this, you know, in a Gold's Gym, and I had seen whenever you had a little like confusion of, okay, this place is selling, you had things you wanted to do, but it wasn't all taking like as fast as you wanted to go probably. How important is it, do you think, like staying true to the vision of what you know you want to do, even when, you know, financially it may not be working out, or the rental space may not be working out? How important do you think that is?
Man, I'm probably going to say something different than what most people would say, you know. So, like, part of recovery is, like, not looking too far down the road, you know, because we want to see what the finished product is going to be like. And And part of the reason for that is so I can decide whether it's worth my effort or not, you know. And it's like, this is what I want it to look like, and then if I don't like how it's going to look, or I don't like where it's going to turn out, I won't even get started, you know. And what recovery in AA has taught me is that kind of that one day at a time thing. So going into the gyms, really going into everything in my life at the time, it was just a one day at a time kind of thing. And it was really just next right thing. Like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what next week's going to look like. I really didn't have an idea of what I wanted the gym to be or where I wanted it to be or any of that. And to be honest with you, I didn't even want a gym. Like, that wasn't even part of my plan. Like, literally when I was in Georgia, my thought was I was going to move to Florida and like sand sailboats and like live under a bridge or something. Like, I didn't care as long as I was like free and peaceful, you know. But the way things were turning out, it was just one thing led to another. I didn't try to make anything happen. I just kept trying to do the right thing, just do the right thing. So every little situation that came up was like, what is the best thing in this situation? What is the best thing in this situation? And, you know, staying open to advice and living by principles, man. And it was like, this is the right thing right now. So that's what we did. And then the next thing happened, and the next thing happened. And each little decision was just, what is the best thing to do in this situation, you know, for the most people kind of thing.
Like including or excluding yourself.
Yeah.
For the most people.
Especially not, well, I think a big part is especially not myself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, because when I come in and I'm like, what do I want? That's when I screw everything up.
You were more thinking of what benefits the most people.
Yeah.
And what's the best choice for them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of cool. I think that's a good point because I feel like a lot of people get lost in, like how you said it, like they think of the long term, so the long term kind of freaks them out, or they think that's not where they want to end up, so they never start.
Yeah.
And they never get that experience that may lead to, you know, what they really want to be doing. They just don't know it yet.
I think, I know it's a tough thing, like we were talking about it earlier, but like how much do I say, like how much do I use ambition and like this is what I want this thing to look like, and how much do I kind of let God, like let the universe kind of take care of it and let it become what it needs to become, you know? And that's why I think the commitment has to be to like principles. And so as long as you're staying by those principles, then whatever happens. And that way you are focused on something, but at the same time, you're not holding everything. You know, I say a lot of times, if I would have had a vision for the gym, it wouldn't be what it is. I'd have screwed it up, because that's what I do with shit, you know? So by just
you
saying...
You went straight for the end product instead of like taking the journey that it took to get you
Exactly.
this.
Exactly. And just letting it be, you know, and trying to like grow through it and really asking the question all the time, why is this here? Because I never felt like this specific one thing was my purpose. Like I feel like it's something else, but that this was necessary for whatever reason. And so I'm still finding out, you know?
Okay. So, I mean, you talk about purpose just now too, and I would say like rewinding back all the way to when you joined the Marine Corps and all that stuff. Do you feel like, well, first you said it was after 9/11, so is that kind of a big reason why you ended up joining the Marine Corps?
Yeah,
what you saw?
I mean, I was kind of lost at the time. You know, I didn't have any direction, any purpose. I was going to school because everybody goes to school. Like, I lived at my church for a year and done like this discipleship school. I had some like kind of spiritual experience stuff in high school, and I was trying to pursue that, and that didn't really work out at the time. And so 9/11 like kind of like freaked me out and pissed me off all at the same time, and it kind of was. I had always in the background thought about the military, you know. So this kind of gave me the excuse. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go do it. But you know, looking back, I think a huge part of it was I didn't have, you know, I played football from when I was like 4 years old. So like I always had a team sport. I always was part of a group that had a purpose.
You belong to something.
That's it, man. Like, and we did really hard shit together. And like the only way we got through it was with each other, you know. And I knew that being with other people, like I had to be strong for them because I wanted them to be able to do it. the military at the time was like the only other thing I could think of. So once you get out of high school or whatever you finish, whatever your top level of athletics is,
college, NFL,
you're
whatever.
done.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're gonna go play pickup softball every other weekend or whatever. But you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like just that tribal like depth and
Do you
connection.
do you feel that's important for everyone to experience? Like, do you feel like that's why you went through a lot of tough times, because you were searching for that again, you were
Yeah.
searching for that feeling? And do you
Yeah.
think that may be why a lot of other people are struggling, because they don't feel a part of something, or like something like that bond, like you were talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I think I do a lot of like thinking about all this kind of stuff, but I think it's wired into us almost like evolutionarily that we have to have this group. That's why we all are trying to join things and be part of things. And when we're isolated, we're weak. And so I think it's just something inside of us that we function better as part of some type of community. And I think everybody's either realizes that but can't find it, or maybe don't even realize that. But I definitely think that it brings stuff out of you that you can't bring out of yourself. I think it's fundamental to who we are, and that if you don't have one, you won't reach your potential.
So basically, if you don't have one, you should find one.
Yeah.
Something that, similar interests or something that you get into.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would maybe suggest CrossFit if they're looking to get into fitness, but just in general, some kind of community or something like that to join.
Yeah, so the way I feel about it is like, as a human being, like you have two parts to you, two big parts that I would consider. So you have like the material, the physical, like the tangible, you have all that kind of part of life. But then as human beings, whenever we acquire consciousness, we now have this whole other part of our lives. So like if you look at an animal or a dog or something like that, it has little self-awareness and not really the ability to conceptualize and things like that. They pretty much just eat and drink and sleep and try to be a dog or whatever. But it's like we have this whole other awareness that we have to deal with. So we consider purpose, we consider things like why, that no other real animal does. And so we have a need to have an answer for that, or have a purpose in life, and so you have like your spiritual and you have your physical. And what I realized with recovery, and I had no clue getting into it, like when I finally started looking for help, I didn't even know about like AA or recovery or what it was about or any of that stuff. But then when I found it, I realized like it was all these kind of spiritual principles and stuff that I had learned when I was younger. And so what AA did for somebody like me was it gave me like a really easy to follow instruction book. It's like, now out of that, like it just blossoms, but it gave me something like really easy to follow along with. And so I say it all the time, like AA is my spiritual program. So it takes care of that half of me. So that part of me that needs to know what my purpose is, and needs to know how to interact with people, and needs to know how to train my thinking and how to view things and how to deal with situations. It's my training program, Well, the other side of me needs the same thing. And so CrossFit was easy, and obviously like the physical program, that I wanted to be involved in. And I feel like they both kind of have the same philosophy, the same outlook.
Do you think that's why CrossFit was the thing for you too, because it had that mental side to it as well, like that kind of tied in with the spiritual side that you're talking about?
Definitely, man. I mean, I would go to a meeting and we would talk about something somebody was going through, something they were dealing with in life, uncomfortable situation or whatever. And I'm thinking about handling uncomfortable situations, and then I get back to the house and I do this 15-minute workout that's just like the most uncomfortable situation you could be in, and it's like I wouldn't quit.
Yeah, you face that point when it gets really uncomfortable, and you're kind of thinking you could either go on or you could back off or quit.
Exactly.
You're facing that pretty much every day in your training.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think it's way more about that than even the physical. It just so happens to take care of the physical needs. So to have something that's that like compressed, and another thing I used to think about a lot too is like it makes it simple, you know, and I feel like truth is that way. You know, truth is like, it's not this big, convoluted, like hard to comprehend. It's not. Like every time in my life where I've found something true, it's been pretty simple. Like it almost stupefies you with the simplicity. It's like, God, I should have saw that a long time ago. Sometimes we get to it through this like big, long, roundabout way, and then we end up right back where we start, you know. And so CrossFit allowed me to, all I have to do is like do CrossFit. I don't have to do cardio, I don't have to do chest, I don't have to do legs, I don't have to worry about the size of my hamstrings, like
calf raises.
Dude, like I just do CrossFit, and it's like, wow. And then your body does what it's supposed to do, and then, you know, you get into nutrition, because that's a big thing for me too, but the whole paleo concept, like I believed in it before it had any impact. I was like,
it just made sense.
Truth, yeah, I feel like truth is like, there's like, I can convince you of something, and that's one thing where it's like, okay, I'm still kind of, but I really don't know how to argue against it, so I'm going to go along with it. But there's another truth that's like ancient. It's like primal. It's deep. And it's not that I agree, it's like it resonates with me. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's the way it would be. Just the idea that like if I present something that speaks to your spirit, like that's something that's deep inside of you, it's like bypassing your brain. It's like that, just like, that's the way it would be. Like if that's truth, that's the way that's how truth would feel, you know. And so this idea of like eating foods that were available to us 10,000 years ago, before we started inventing food, you know, so much of our life is synthetic. And this building and these boxes and like it's all fake. Like it's not really supposed to be there in real life. That's what I say anyway.
It makes sense.
It's like, you know,
it wouldn't be here if somebody didn't create it.
Yeah, and it's not even that it's a bad thing. It's just understanding its place, and then to understand that like that our intellect has like far outrun our biological systems, you know. And so, you know, in the last couple hundred years, the things we've come up with versus the things that our body has had time to adapt to is it's night and day, you know. So we've invented these foods and these things that have no business being in our bodies. You know, biologically, we're still the same as we were 10,000 years ago. So, I mean, I know some people, like religious people or whatever, are like evolution. And it's like, you can explain it either way. So I've told people, you know, we're animals, and everything that we need to survive is already out there. Just like it is for a lion, just like it is for a bear, and it must be screwed up, you know. But you won't find like a really obese animal unless it's in captivity and we're feeding it, you know, because it just doesn't really happen in nature. And so it just made sense. It was like, yeah, we got here by living off the land and the true ecosystem.
I think that speaks to like many points beyond just like you know, food and everything too. I think, but like you were talking about truth and how simple it is, and I think that's the reason either a lot of people miss it or they fight. You know, like it's the truth is so simple. They think it has to be more complex, or they'll fight the truth because they don't really. They know what they need to do, but they don't want to do it. They don't want to continuously do it, so they'll fight it or say, "Oh, it can't be that easy," and they'll find another path and they'll continue on the same pattern.
I think people like to make things complex so that they have an excuse.
Exactly.
You know? It's like, well, it's so, I just don't understand this, so I'm not going to do it. It's like,
or like CrossFit's, you know, they do too many crazy movements. I could never do that stuff, so I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
Or something, you know, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or same with food. I can't track my meals. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
You know?
It's yeah. I mean, it's right along the lines. And so when you start, I mean, you get involved in the recovery principles and stuff the same way. Like, it's so simple. You know, it's profoundly simple. And it's like, we don't like it because then when we realize that we actually do understand it, then we're accountable for it.
Yeah. So I think that's why, like, they don't want to actually face themselves in the mirror and, you know, face whatever they need to face. So they're like, they say it's too complex, so it's a reason to go back and do whatever they were doing before.
Yeah.
You know, maybe like use again, drink again, to not hold themselves accountable, like you said.
Yeah.
How important is it, do you think, to have accountability in your life, whether it's recovery or fitness or health? or just business in general, how important do you think accountability is?
Yeah, I mean, so not only accountability but guidance, man. Like, I wasn't the biggest taker of advice before. You know, I thought that I could figure everything out on my own, and I just wasn't like, I wasn't open to suggestion really. And so in recovery, like if I get around somebody who also drank too much, I would look at everything about us that wasn't the same. And so whatever worked for you wouldn't work for me, or something like that. And it wasn't until I realized that, man, these guys are like where I want to be. Maybe I should just listen to them. You know?
They may have something that I need to hear.
The thing about spiritual truth, man, is like, or really any truth, you know, we want to understand it and then we'll consider doing it. But a lot of this stuff doesn't work that way. Like, you just start doing it
And then
you understand it.
Oh, wow.
So if you look at things like CrossFit, you know, that's why CrossFit is, to me, like there's a saying in Recovery and Alcoholics Anonymous that alcohol is just a metaphor, you know, and not to get real deep into recovery, but, you know, my problem is me. It's not, drinking was just one way that it showed itself. The problem was me the whole time, you know, and it always will be. But to me, CrossFit's a metaphor, you know, of life. So it's like, I'm telling somebody, hey, whenever you squat, you need to make sure you're back on your heels. And then, you know, 6 months later, they're dropping cleans in front of them, and they can't PR, and they can't go up and weight because they're still catching it on their toes. Well, they're still catching it on their toes because they didn't squat the way I told them to. And they didn't squat the way I told them to because they didn't think about the big picture, and they didn't feel like it.
But they may have thought like, you know, they know how to squat, so they don't need to.
It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
I found the easier way. Like,
I could squat faster this way.
exactly.
So it kind of hits back to the point where you're talking about understanding it before you're doing it, rather than doing it before you understand it.
That's it, man. And so, you know, you're talking about accountability, but to have somebody you trust to tell you, hey, do it this way, and I don't have time to explain to you why, you know, or even if I did, you wouldn't listen right now, so just do it that way, you know. Learning the power of that, and then seeing the outcome of that in my own life, you know, in one area. So with the alcohol, you know, I started to actually feel like they said I would feel. Not before I did what they said to do, after I did what they said to do. And it was like, man.
So you had to trust in what they were saying.
I mean, I got to a point I was so beat down, I didn't have any options, you know. Hopefully it doesn't take most people that long, you know. But, so I became open to suggestion. And so one of the things I realized, and I had learned this before too, is that when we take advice, two things can't happen anymore. One of them is like, if things go well, I can't take all the credit for it. Well, that's a dangerous place for me. But if things go bad, I can't take all the blame for it either, because other people kind of chimed in on the decision, and we did what we thought was the best thing to do. And if it didn't work out, I'm not the worst person in the world. If it did work out, it wasn't my idea anyway. So it keeps me in a good place, you know.
Kind of like experiencing and learning from stuff that doesn't work, and then also, you know, giving the credit to others for whenever you succeed.
Yeah, realizing that nobody's self-made. No one is an island, you know, and any success you have is the result of a lot of people's input. So for you to think that you somehow did this, you know, it's foolishness, and it leads to destruction. So one of the things I did really early on is got a hold of a mentor in the CrossFit business that was way ahead of me and could overlook everything and kind of help me guide my decisions, because I knew enough. When I started the gym, I knew enough to know that I didn't know shit. Like, that was the best thing, was that I knew that I didn't know anything.
You knew you had to seek advice.
That's it. Like, I had no clue what I was doing, you know?
You never ran a gym before.
No, any kind of real business or any, this is all uncharted territory. Not only that, but sober. Like, everything was new.
Everything was
You know what I mean?
uncharted. Because you had been struggling with that for how long? How many years?
It had been like 8 years.
Yes, that's a lifetime.
Yeah,
Time
well, I
to
mean,
be
I was
going
like,
through.
yeah, I was like my whole adult life almost.
Yeah. It was, you know, a lifetime to you at that time.
Yeah, exactly. So the accountability and having somebody to oversee and somebody that's out ahead of you, man, that's like, you know, that's what your coach should be in class. You know, I think anything we do gets passed down. You know, we look at like society, we look at evolution, we look at history, you know, and how these customs and traditions and these principles have been passed down forever. It's not, nobody sat around and invented this stuff. These are observations. You know, it's like, hey, people who do it this way end up here, and people who do it this way end up here. And you can do whatever you want, but you're probably not going to change thousands of years of history, you know.
It's like trying to change the seasons.
Yeah.
You know, like they're always going to follow one another.
That's it. So I feel like there's this, and I don't know what it is or where it comes from. Everybody's got like a different opinion of it, but there's this like spiritual law that's like, if you do things this way, these things happen. If you do things this way, these things happen.
Well, yeah, so many people talk about it too, like because you know, that it is 2016. We have so much history of people doing stuff before us, you know. So why try to fight against somebody doing the same thing as you, and it's already reached, you know, like you said, they go this way and this happens. Why try to fight that and find your own path? I mean, you can still find your own path, but you know, trying so hard to change history rather than just taking that advice.
I think about it like this: you need to make your own mistakes because you have to. I mean, that's part of the learning process. And you know, my mentor says that he he got to where he is by making the most mistakes the fastest. You know, like getting through that stuff. And I was thinking about the other day, you have to make your own mistakes, but you don't have to make the same mistakes. Like that's how we progress as a species, because you're not still making the same mistakes. And I think a really good example of it is like if you ever did like algebra or like geometry or physics or any of that stuff, you know. I was the one that, you know, they taught me the Pythagorean theorem, and I'm like, okay, I see it, like I've memorized it, but I need to go figure out how he figured it out, and I want to start back over, you know, and
understand why it's working.
Yeah, like I want to know, you know, or I want to.
It's kind of how I am too. I hear what you're saying, but like, all right, explain it to me. Like you kind of almost have to see it, even though it's on paper.
Like, yeah, like I want to think through it.
Yeah.
And then, kind of as I advanced, I realized, you know, you could go back and like reinvent the Pythagorean theorem every time you came across a right triangle and you had to figure out some trigonometry, or you could just plug that shit in. And it was like, recovery kind of was just like, why don't you stop trying to reinvent the wheel and just plug this shit in?
And I followed with so many other people that have done it and worked for them.
That's it.
I want to try it out.
That's it.
Instead of resisting that.
So if I just do that, if I take what was already done, then I can start working on some new stuff. Because all this has already been answered. All this has already been taken care
So
of.
why not apply it to something else?
That's it. Like, and move on and do my own thing and invent my own mistakes using, like, building off of what's already been done rather than just keep starting over at the beginning.
I heard that the other day too. Somebody saying he had seen his family make all these mistakes before, so he knew he didn't have to make those mistakes because somebody else made them for him.
Right.
He still made a ton of his own, but he could shortcut the process because he saw all the other mistakes and he knew he didn't have to go through it. Well, I want to touch on something else too that you went back, or that we've been talking about as mentors. So like obviously a mentor is working well for you and the different things you have going on. How important would you say it is for everyone to have a mentor, whether they're doing CrossFit or they're in business or just everyday life? How important is having a mentor there? Like a mentor or a coach or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mandatory. Like, and I think anybody will tell you that. I mean, anybody that's made it to where you want to be is going to tell you they had somebody that helped them along, you know. We're not made to do this life thing alone, you know. We don't have to figure it all out ourselves. And there are people out there that are available that want to help, you know, and it's, I think it's the you know, the shortest distance between 2 points is like a straight line. I think like a mentor keeps you on that straight line.
They kind of pull you back whenever you veer away.
That's it, man. Instead of you, and you're still gonna have your own mistakes within that coverage or whatever. But it's like just to have somebody, because things get tough, you know, and sometimes you're on the edge of like reality and things that exist. Like you're creating new stuff, and so you need that guidance. Like you need somebody to at least help you.
Yeah, because sometimes, I mean, it's like me trying to create a business or you trying to create a business. You don't know anyone that's ever done it before,
right,
what you're trying to do. So it's like you can't really conversate with people about it, and you're kind of all in your head all the time. It can get toxic, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So having a mentor, I'm sure, is valuable.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of mentors and other things, how or who would you say was the most influential person early on in your life? Like before you knew about mentors, or before you got into all this, who was the most influential person to you? Was your parents or some like football coach or anybody like that? Or?
Yeah, so I mean, I had a football coach in high school that was pretty influential on me. My stepdad had a huge influence on me. He's a real steady guy, and like I've never seen him like waver, and it's kind of that example. Like he taught me a lot, like verbally, but he taught me more by just being consistent, because I was
kind of by his
over the
actions.
place. Exactly. And then my mom too. My mom overcame a lot of stuff and showed me. I pretty much had like really visibly in front of me like the two paths you could go, and I was afraid that I was condemned to kind of follow the bad one.
What was that bad path?
It's just like.
Or what, was there somebody specific that was the bad path that you saw? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's family stuff, so it's just like different sides of my family, and one of them kind of went in one direction, and one kind of went in the other direction, and just seeing like the end results of that type of lifestyle versus thought.
You kind of knew that's not where you wanted to go.
Exactly, but I really didn't know if I could. Like, I didn't know if I had the strength to.
You felt like you might be destined for that path.
Right.
At times.
Yeah, like it's just part of like it's almost like genetic.
Yeah.
And I believed that for a long time. Believing that was a lot of what kept me where I was.
Could be you believed it so strongly that you were taking those actions without realizing it because you felt like that's what you were supposed to be doing.
It's like self-fulfilling prophecy stuff.
Yeah. Was that at a young age that kind of those two paths took place? Or?
That was my whole life, man. Like my parents split when I was like 10 or something. Yeah, and it kind of diverged there, and really my whole life was just this battle between like, it really is as simple as like those old cartoons, so like the little devil on one side, little angel on the other, and just really trying to understand what that meant and where it came from and why. I got in a lot of trouble growing up. I was just discontent, bored. I was bored, man, and so I was mischievous, Got kicked out of a lot of schools, and I just couldn't seem to like behave myself.
It wasn't necessarily because you were trying to do bad things. It was just you were bored, you were active,
Yeah.
so you acted out, not really intending to do wrong.
No, like I was never like malicious. It was just like
you're always cutting up or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can remember when I was young, my mom sent me to class with my own little like conduct report card every day. And I could get like a S for satisfactory, a E for like excellent or something, and a U for unsatisfactory. And like every day I would get a U. Like I would go to like I'd be like, today I'm not, like that's my whole goal in life today is to not get a U, and I'll get a U. Like I just could not control myself. Like, and so trying to understand that, why am I like that? Like what makes me like that kind of thing was a huge part of my life.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in kindergarten. Since kindergarten, probably the teachers would always say the same thing. Like, Josh is a good kid. We love him in class, but he just won't sit down, or he won't stop talking. And it was the same thing. I wasn't trying to be bad or do anything. I just was either bored or I was restless or ADD later on, or whatever you want to call it. And that's I've become more self-aware of those things as I've got older, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. And it was kind of the same way. I wasn't trying to be malicious. It's just I couldn't control that kind of deal. But that's a whole other topic. Okay, so that was when you were young. So how do you think that played a huge role on how your life transpired, like the early divorce and things like that? From a young, because 10 years old, you didn't really know, an apple from an orange at that age. So
yeah, I really didn't. I really just like I wondered a lot, like why am I bad? Like really, that was kind of like.
And was always the question too, like why did my parents split up? Why is that going on?
Yeah, but I didn't like actively think about that. Like I really didn't think it was a big deal. I just knew that I kept getting in trouble. I always felt different. You know, like every school I went to, I didn't really fit in. It's like I always had friends and stuff, but it's like I just never felt like I fit in, you know. Yeah, I couldn't figure it out, you know. And then on into adulthood, you know, when I started drinking, it was like everything I did was like too much, you know. Just like I'm that kind of person, and even drinking, I was like, I really thought I was like ruined because I drank with a bunch of people who I knew were alcoholic, and I drank like twice as much as them. So I was like, what does that make me, you know?
Was it still that kind of that same feeling of like the unsatisfactory, the S or the U? Was it still kind of the same thing with drinking? Was it like, okay, my goal today is to not drink?
Yes.
You still ended up.
Yeah, it was exactly the same.
You couldn't really answer why.
No. But what happened was like in high school, I kind of had an experience between my junior and senior year, and it really, it was like I was so tired of being the way that I was, you know, that I kind of just gave up on life. And really what happened, looking back at it, you know, I became willing and open to suggestion, and I started living my life by, you know, at the time it was religion, it was Christianity and the Bible and all that stuff, and I was like, look, I don't care enough anymore. I'm so like tired and frustrated that I'll just do whatever. Like, I don't even care.
You just wanted to find something to, somebody
like,
to tell you what to
I
do.
quit fighting. You know, I submitted, and my whole life got better. Like, it was nuts. And like the freedom that I felt, like I started like making straight A's and like have my homework done, actually study for tests.
Night and day.
It was ridiculous. And you know, I'm real like intense, and I get pretty deep into stuff. So when this happened, it was actually a matter of I was at a camp and we were studying like theology and philosophy and all kind of stuff like that, and I feel like I had like this kind of intellectual awakening. Like I was introduced to people who thought about things the way that I thought about them. Like I had done, you know, class was boring, but these guys were like talking about stuff that I was like
Found interesting.
Yeah.
So before it was like nothing just caught your attention.
Right.
But finally it was like,
everything
wow.
Things came pretty easy to me as a kid, and then when I started getting into these concepts and these ideas that were so big and so deep, like profound, it just opened my eyes to like this whole other place. Like what I had experienced in life, I realized like that this is not all there is. There's some other stuff out there. And so there was that, and it was kind of mixed in with theology and Christianity and what they call apologetics, which is like kind of philosophical defense of Christianity and stuff like that. So I got into that, and I think, you know, looking back, what happened was like this was going on at the same time. You know, this spiritual experience that freed me from this inability to control myself, and the religion was they were kind of pushed together. And at some point, I confused the two because I thought they were the same, and so I started to have some issues with like the religious side of stuff, like the dogmatic side of stuff, and I didn't agree with some things, and I had some questions that nobody could answer. So when I got to that point I was so frustrated like intellectually with religion and stuff, and there was some other stuff too, probably like me, that I wanted to do some things that I shouldn't have been doing. Anyway, I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. So it was like, I don't agree with this like religious thing anymore. But then the spiritual principles were like tied to that, and so that all got dismissed.
Because you were thinking, if I'm dismissing the religious side, it's all of it.
Yeah, it's all
spirit.
It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
So really, the only thing there is to do is live for yourself. You know, this thing's not true. This is bullshit. So really, all my job is to just get as much out of life as I can. Because,
for me.
Yeah.
For you. You know.
That was the only reason, because everything else is bullshit.
Yeah.
Which led to the alcoholism, like right back to where
so it
I
was. Like you started the principles and everything, and you found, okay, you were happy, everything was making sense, everything was clicking, and you found something you kind of didn't understand with it, so the principles got away again.
Yeah.
And that's when it flipped upside down again. But now you're older, so instead of turning to cutting up in class, it turned to drinking or whatever it may be.
It was me trying to maintain, you know, my depression, anxiety, fearfulness, lack of purpose, like you name it. And then I alcohol just freed me from it for a little while.
Because it took your mind off of
Yeah,
all those things you knew.
altered state.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't like this state, so I'm gonna get in this state, and nothing matters. So
why does it matter anyway?
Yeah, because I was so self-centered that the only thing that mattered was how I felt.
Just feeling good, or
That's it.
having peace of mind, or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
Or at that moment, peace of mind.
that's it.
Yeah.
And you know, that just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So there's a thing called the Big Book, and it's like it's kind of like the AA Bible, you know, and it's really amazing, the book, because it's profound without being like difficult to understand, you know.
It's like simple concepts, but
Yeah, but it's like, wow,
like it hits you in the face. Kind
yeah, and for an alcoholic, like, and I say like of my variety, like I was pretty bad. It just opened my eyes, man. Like, not only was I beat down by the drinking, but I was like, I needed something. And when I opened that book, started reading that book, and it was like, of course
Here it is.
that would be it, like spiritual principles, because I knew that I had thrown all those out, you know. And it was a progressive thing, but it was like, so one example, like I was having trouble finishing school, like I couldn't stay engaged, and I had friends that were graduating that were younger than me that I knew cheated their way through school. And so my idea was, well, if all that matters is finishing school, I know I'm capable, so it doesn't really matter if I cheat or if I lie, or
As long as I finish.
that's it.
That's all that
Just
matters.
get that piece of paper. Like those kind of things became my thinking, you know, and like get away with it any way you can, because it really doesn't matter.
But it probably aided to the problem, because like morally you probably still had those strong principles.
Yeah, you can't help that.
You just went against them because you didn't think it mattered anymore.
Right.
But it was still probably eating you up on the inside, because you knew ultimately you still stand by those principles.
Yeah, I mean, I knew truth. You know, I knew. I had thrown it out, so I couldn't. Yeah, it's just this constant battle. And so when I opened the Big Book and realized it was spiritual principles, my first reaction was like I already screwed this up. Like I've already been through that. Like, I already had the experience that changed my life, and then I went back. So it's like you can't get saved twice. You know what I mean? It was like I'm really screwed now because I already did this thing that everybody else did. You know what I'm saying?
So you were thinking there's no hope for you because you did it already and you're back.
Yeah, even the thing that works didn't work for me. That's kind of how it was. Well, that's my disease it's a self-centered, egotistical disease, and that's just looking back at it now. It's like my ego was so big that I was like unhelpable.
Yeah, you were thinking like, okay, I already went through that. It didn't help me, so how's it possible it's going to help me now? I can't be. All those other people can be helped, but I can't.
A lot of people think of ego being as I'm better than everybody, but it can be I'm worse than everybody too. It's just I'm something more than everybody.
Yeah.
Like that's
Nobody
what
else is on my level.
That's it, man. Like I'm in my own zone kind of thing, and it's like, yeah. So that scared me. But as I started to get into it, and I started to get around the community and kind of open my mind to some suggestions, what allowed me to do was bring those spiritual principles back without worrying about all the dogma and things that I had difficulty with intellectually, you know. So it was like, okay, so here is a way for you to still live like a moral life, but it doesn't really matter why.
It doesn't have to be anybody's certain way, or
No.
it doesn't have to make 100% sense. This is how you do it, and kind of make it your own way,
That's it.
instead of like trying to fit somebody else's code.
And it was almost like freedom, because it was like, wait, you're telling me that I can have back all those things that had helped me before without worrying about having to like just ignore my mind that's telling me something else, you know? So it was like magic to me, man. I mean, it gave me purpose, you know, and it kind of helped put me back together.
Yeah, I feel like not a non-clear purpose or not having purpose is a big problem, especially now with like the internet and millennials or whatever you want to say, like how purpose is such a big focal point that people know they're supposed to have a purpose and they don't know what it is, so that leads to turmoil as well.
Yeah.
But that's kind of going a different direction.
No, I mean, that is the direction. I mean, that's it, man, is that people don't have purpose. So, I mean, Glassman said it, and I'm a huge Glassman fan, like, just like the stuff that he's written. the principles that he's written, like I see the similarities between like spiritual truths that I've had experience with and then like physical reality. But there was a quote that he said, "You have to have a purpose to do these workouts." And you think about it. How long have you been doing CrossFit now?
Probably now I say on and off because there was a point where I turned away from it, but like 4 years, I'd say.
Yeah,
Something like that.
It's hard stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it gets harder the better you get. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a reason for doing it, you're not going to keep doing it.
And I think that's why I turned away from it at that time, because I lost sight of my purpose, because things happened and my purpose changed. My purpose would have changed, or I just fought my purpose. So I became unclear about it and I stopped doing it.
That's it.
And then until I came back and realized why I was doing it, I didn't think it was a big deal that I turned away from it.
So that's exactly, like, that's everything right there. So we talk about this a lot, and this is kind of where I feel like this next project is coming from. You talk about purpose, like when you get that right, it's like things start falling into place, because it's like knowing where the finish line is. I mean, you might wander, but you know where you need to end up, and the purpose is what will guide you when you don't have the answer to any other questions,
So I think a lot of times life is going to smack you in the face and you don't. Maybe you flipped upside down and you don't know what the heck's going on, but if you know in the back of the mind, like you said, you know your purpose, you know why you're doing that thing, that's how you stay the course. Even though something may rise that's tougher than you think you are, if you know why you're doing it.
That's it. So we live in a self-centered culture. I mean, we're self-centered people. So what I had to learn to do was look at things about myself and not necessarily place a value on them as far as right, wrong, good, and bad. It's just how it is, So whether you believe in the Garden of Eden and, we became aware of right and wrong, and then we sinned, and so original sin, whatever that is, or if you look at like evolutionarily, survival is one of the primary instincts. So we have this drive to look out for ourselves, and it's a natural thing, and it's not even a bad thing. It just gets corrupted,
It goes too far.
Yeah. So that's the bent, like that's the propensity is toward the self. And so you were asking earlier about how important it is to be part of a community. Well, I mean, this is a huge part of it. Like there has to be something that you live for that's not just how you feel.
That's bigger than yourself.
That's it, man. We all need it, and we know we need it, because anytime we've been around it, it draws us.
And you can tell people, it draws us, and then they want to be a part of something. People are searching for a community to be a part of, and they may try something that doesn't work, but they're still looking for something.
So what I find, we live in a consumerism culture, capitalism. We're all trying to sell stuff, and so what we have to appeal to is something that we know everyone has, and that's self-interest. So we're in this place where we're constantly being bombarded with these messages that you need this to make you better at what you want to do, and this will make you feel better, and this will make you look better, and this will make you be better, and this will make people like you.
That's probably why a lot of the big advertising campaigns work, because they hear that if somebody's struggling, they say, "Oh, I could have this.
That's it.
If I do this."
That's it.
Wow, it benefits me.
What am I going to get out of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the reality is, it works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't do it.
And it's been millions and millions.
So we're being pandered to, and really it's not out of genuine love for you. It's out of them getting something back from you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's just this whole convoluted system, and what happens is we're so trained on what are we going to get out of it by media, by commercialism, by all that stuff. So what happens in the gym, a lot of times we get people that come in and their purpose is themselves, and sometimes that's it's kind of hey, it doesn't matter what gets you here as long as you get here. Yeah, it's just what happens after you get here. So we see it all the time. We see people that come in because they wanted to lose 10 pounds, or they wanted to get ready for their wedding, or they wanted to get ready for the summer or whatever, and they don't make it. The people that come for that usually don't get that. But the people that come in and they're I'm getting older, I can't even play with my grandkids, I can't ride horses anymore, I'm having trouble getting in on my truck, my blood pressure's high, have a bigger purpose, they end up losing 10 pounds and being ready for the summer and getting everything that the other person came for by that not being the purpose.
Because their purpose wasn't strong enough.
It's not self-interested. Like, yeah. So when you have that bigger purpose, things fall in line, you know. And we talk about it in CrossFit all the time. Like, that's kind of how the whole thing worked. It's like, hey, why don't we focus on like your performance and your capacity and your abilities? You work on lifting a little bit more weight, and you work on doing a few more pull-ups and jumping on a little bit higher box. Get out the mirror, get off the scale, just do life and get better at life.
Get out of the self-interest.
That's it. Eat in a way that's good for your body. Participate in the group, and then you look in the mirror one day and you're like, wow, this is better than I even
look way
thought
better
of.
than I ever, was doing. Now, what would you say to people? So there's a lot out there people that they know they need a purpose, but they don't know how to find it. What would you say to those people that are searching for a purpose?
Okay, so I think about all this stuff all the time. Kind of where I'm at with it, I feel like I could give everybody their purpose, like the overarching. I feel like I know what it is, yeah. But I think what you have to look for is, we're talking about truth resonating with you, And the way that I try to get people to think about it is like, think of those things that just moved you, I heard somebody say, and it was excellent because I had heard it a different way before. I don't even remember the more complex way, but somebody said, what makes you mad, sad, and glad? And it's like, that's so simple. Because if it affects you to the point where it angers you, it means it needs to be changed. Like, you see the way it is and it needs to be changed. If it makes you sad, same thing. Like, that's a negative emotional reaction that shows you like, this shouldn't be happening. And what makes you glad is usually when that is undone. You know what I'm saying? So
wow.
If somebody, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but somebody maybe.
Well, what's an example for you?
What makes me mad and sad?
Mad and sad.
Watching people kind of waste away, that makes me mad. Seeing so another thing about alcoholism is like hyper emotionality or whatever. Seeing people suffer with addiction, like, that makes me sad. And what makes me glad is watching people come out of the cocoon. You know what I mean? Like, redemption.
Is it because it's such a big part of your life?
I think
is that
so.
Where you feel it stems from? So you know what they're feeling, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know that they have potential.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah.
That's powerful. Yeah, I was thinking about it as you said it. That's real powerful. I never heard that before. Mad, sad,
so simple, man.
And it's still three simple words.
I was trying to. So when I talk about it, I was like, like, what resonates with you? Like, think about. And this is kind of along the same lines, but just a little bit deeper. But it's like, who are some people that you're like, man, that dude's got it, and why? Or like, man, that's somebody I would like to be around. Why?
What would you say? Like, when those kind of principles are, when you think of somebody that's successful or somebody you try to emulate, who would that be for you?
So I like to read a lot. A lot of stuff is from older days. But the guys that really like move me deeply inside are like Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Now I saw you quote something from him. I think one time I was like, oh, yeah, because I don't know where from, but I've seen a lot of his quotes or.
It's funny, like you'll see his quotes
all
over the place.
Yeah.
But I was telling Alex this morning, it's like literally like he's got one-liners that
game changers.
Yeah, that you can write a whole book on.
Yeah, and it's just like he puts it so simply or like elegantly, but it's like instead of one-liner, that's like wow.
Yeah, like
Emerson's good. But well, speaking of that, you talked about Alex too, like Alexandra, that's your fiance.
Yeah.
So how important would you say, having someone there, like a strong relationship or having some support system there, how important do you think that is? Or how important has Alexandra been with you?
I mean, again, like I'll probably say something different than what most people would say. Like, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's great, but I don't think it's necessary because I didn't have it for a while. In fact, I think it was better that I didn't have it for a while.
Because you kind of needed to go through it on your own.
Yeah, and I needed to, a lot of people try to get into relationships and stuff in order to become. And it's like, you need to become first. You know what I mean? Now there's a whole nother level of becoming that's going to occur after that. But, too many people are trying to, like we were kind of talking about before, trying to fill a hole or trying to think this next thing is going to make me what I'm missing. And it's like,
maybe they think this relationship is going to fill that void, or if I get a girlfriend or if I get a boyfriend, that's going to, then I'll be who I really am.
We confuse distraction with fulfillment, right? So it's like, as long as I have something taking up my attention, then I'm not looking at the fact that I'm really empty. And so we just move from distraction to distraction to distraction, and that's using. You know what I mean?
Just in a different way.
Yeah, that's just using. That's all it is. So if you can stop all that long enough to really become fulfilled, then when you get back around those things, it's a different relationship. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Do you feel that, as you're saying that, like it's better that you went through it alone? Do you feel like you're much more geared for a relationship and being better in a relationship now that you did go through that by yourself?
I mean for sure. Like I'm definitely better than I used to be, but it's still like it's still a difficult thing. And when I was trying to change, and this is how I feel like this would help me, is that I had to get as many things out of the way as possible. I ended up having to go to a place for it, to just let go of everything, to start over. And so one of the things I did was like really kept myself protected from situations in life and stuff that could, if you're an impatient person, not driving in traffic for a little while will probably help you be a more patient person. But you can't not drive in traffic forever. At some point you got to go back and get in traffic and still fucking be patient. That's the hard part. And so for a while, for the first few years, like I was really insulated and protected, and I specifically kind of like ordered my life around not being tempted, not being
around those environments.
Yeah, involved with things that set me off, avoiding triggers and things like that. But it's like if you're gonna grow, you're gonna have to learn how to expand these things, And so it's constant. I mean, every time something new happens or there's a new development or whatever, and then like this next project coming up, like I'm kind of having some of the like freak out stuff that I'm used to having because that's normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
But to know that you'll only be able to help as many people as you can like continue to move forward. So it's like, yeah, like you started in your garage. If you want to help 5 people, that's all you got to know how to do. But if you want to help 25, you're going to have to learn some new shit. Like you're going to have to learn what's the next thing. And if you want to help 125, that's a different thing. If you want to help 525, that's a different thing. And so because I believe that usefulness is my ultimate purpose, it's not, there's this tendency to say like, if you want to get this, if you want to get here, then you need to do this. And I can't be driven by that. I'll go drink a fit. Like that does not motivate me. Like thinking of myself being at this certain place, it's exciting, but then it's like empty. Like it just crushes me like spiritually. So I have to think of it in terms of a responsibility. And it's like if you want to help more people, or if you feel like you're capable of helping more people than you're currently helping, then you have an obligation to figure out how to live at this next level.
So it's your responsibility. So it's more impactful to you. Like you're responsible and you think of the other people. So it's not just about you anymore.
I have to, because just like you talked about, you get in workouts. If it's about you losing 10 pounds, what happens after you lose 10 pounds?
Then what's the point?
You're done.
Yeah.
You just go
so
put it right back on.
If you coach a class with 20 people, or you help one person, but it's not about helping more, then you're done as well. It's back to you.
That's it.
So
if you go into for what you can get out of it, you either get it and you're done, or you don't get it and you're done. Either way, you're done. And so that's not a good reason,
So kind of keeping it as a higher responsibility is what helped you kind of just grow on a track of growth and helping more and more people.
Yeah, and it's still a daily thing.
Well, let's talk about the new project you're talking about. What's going on with that?
All right, so there's 2 things. I kind of said earlier how the gyms I knew were like some type of stepping stone, but not necessarily like the purpose in itself. It was like people need CrossFit. That's why this needs to be done. People need it the way that I do it, and that's why I have to do it, you know. So like kind of that obligatory stuff again. So what I really wanted to do was somehow, because the CrossFit, and man, this stuff is like hours and hours and hours, but how the concepts come together, how the same principles that get people fit and got me fit, change is change, you know, and that got me sober was like the same thing, you know, and how they interrelate, how they work together was such a huge thing, because, you know, CrossFit gave me like this tangible change, like even when my life, because if you're a liar and you stop lying one day, everybody doesn't trust you that day. It might take 3 years, you know.
Because you've been lying up until that point.
Exactly. So, but we're like, well, hey, y'all should all like me again because I don't lie anymore. And it's like, we'll wait and see, you know. So, CrossFit gave me like this tangible reality of like this physical change that was occurring while I was waiting for my life to change, you know. Helped me through the gap. So say it's 3 years, what you gonna do for those 3 years while you're not lying but nobody trusts you? It's like, you gotta find something, you know. And so CrossFit helped me with that. So I was seeing my body change every week. I would get on the scale and lose another 5 pounds, and it was like just that something was different than what it was for the last 8 years was enough to kind of keep me on track, you know. Well, I mean, that's just one thing, but like there's the similarities in philosophy of libertarianism and AA, and like how they come together is just ridiculous. So it helped me with my sobriety. I was helping some guys when I was in the recovery center, and really what I wanted to do was to tie these things together. About 1.5 years ago, I met a guy who owned some treatment centers who also was involved in CrossFit. CrossFit had an impact in his recovery, and so he got me started teaching a class every week at a treatment center. So through that process of really kind of dialed in like what this thing looks like and how it's going to work, and we call it SobrietyWod. So WOD, you know, WOD is like workout of the day, and it's a lot to explain, but it's coming. Like it's like right here, we're about to start it, and what it is using the principles of recovery in CrossFit and vice versa, and using them as like life application of these principles and how they tie together. And so I kind of like touched on it, but the idea of usefulness to others being my overarching purpose. So, you know, this whole philosophy of utilitarianism and what's useful is what's good and all that kind of stuff, and I'm kind of along those lines now, where like your purpose really, if you look at it evolutionarily, is that I have to survive, but I also have to help further the species, you know. And whether you believe that because of evolution or you believe in God and because he loves you and he loves everybody, so you're supposed to, you still ends up being the same thing. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So this program is based on the concept of usefulness being my highest purpose, and that's what AA taught me, that usefulness to God and others is my ultimate purpose. Well, usefulness requires two things, right? You have to be willing to be used, and you have to be capable of being used. So what I find, go ahead.
Well, you can't just have the idea and want to help these people change but not know how to do it. That's what you're saying.
That's exactly it. And what I find is people are on one side or the other, but a lot of people don't bring them together. And so, you know, AA, spiritual programs, we talked about the divided self and those two parts of you, you know, your spiritual side and your physical side. Well, that spiritual side is the side that needs to become willing. That's the control center. But what it's controlling is your physical side, which needs to be capable. So I can be willing to help people all I want, but if I'm laid up in a hospital bed with diabetes, getting my leg cut off, and like, what use am I?
You can't really help.
No.
Or they may not trust your example.
That's it, and it's pretty brash, but so is like fitness, and so is sobriety. It's pretty raw, and I think that needs to be like, I think what started CrossFit was the rawness of it, you know.
So you kind of feel that needs to be in the core of what you're trying to do.
That needs to be in life. You know, you look at like, you know, we've heard this all, but like not keeping school or not having grades or not like, CrossFit brought that back. It was like, hey, no, you're getting a score and everybody's going to know how you did. Because we know that nothing changes performance like accountability. It's like, wait, you're going to tell the group how I did? I better get my shit together.
I better move a little faster.
Quit.
Yeah.
One or the other. And we've tried to make this situation where it's this bullshit synthetic situation where you can not be your best, but nobody will know about it. Like that's not real life. You know, if
You could slack off and it's okay, or you can just coast by.
it doesn't work that
and
way.
still get a trophy or whatever.
That's it. It's a lie. And if somebody comes in here with a gun right now, whatever one of us can get out of here the fastest is who's going to live. Like, that's just the reality, And that's the concept. So I need a program to make me willing, or to help me with my willingness. And for me, that was my spiritual program, which was AA. And then I also need something, though, that once I'm willing, I can actually do it. It doesn't matter. I wanted to play with my kid when I was 280 and could barely function, but I couldn't play with my kid, So just becoming willing is insufficient.
Isn't enough.
And then there's other people that just focus on the capability. So yeah, you can do 1 million pull-ups and run a 4-minute mile, but you're
just
the
doing
most
that,
selfish piece of shit. It's like,
exactly.
you're useless too.
You could do 1 million pull-ups, like you said, and somebody can watch you, but it doesn't help them to get 1 pull-up.
That's it, man. Like, it has to come together.
Yeah.
And so SobrietyWod
is kind of how you bring it together.
Yeah, so SobrietyWod is for addicts in recovery that have some familiarity with the 12 steps and the concepts of recovery. And that's who it's geared toward. You can come, anybody can come. It's going to be, we're starting it out, we're going to be here. We'll be doing 1 night a week. It's free. So you'll come in, we'll do like a discussion kind of deal and talk about this stuff. And then we'll do a little workout, just to kind of tie in the principles. It's hard to give it's like kind of giving an elevator spiel on CrossFit. Like, it's hard to sum it
It's
all
hard to
up
put
in
it
one
into
thing.
one.
But that's the concept of it.
Well, how about when is it starting? And if people are interested in learning more about it, where can they go to find out more about it?
Yeah, so we have a site, SobrietyWod.com. It's getting rebuilt right now.
Okay.
So in 3 weeks from now, which is what's the 17th of October. So about 3 weeks from now, it should be up and running. Yeah, and we're starting the social media stuff today, so it's going to be out there. All the information is going to be out there.
So keep your eyes for it. So it's SobrietyWod.com.
SobrietyWod.com. It'll connect
SobrietyWod on
through
Facebook.
That's it. Facebook,
Twitter,
Instagram, Twitter. And so, all the details are going to be on there. Anybody, like I said, anybody can come. It's a free class, and we're just going to kind of get started and go from there. We have a vision for the whole thing.
So there may be some videos in the future too.
Yeah, we'll be doing some videos. We'll be doing a lot of content and stuff like that, and kind of putting it out there. But so people that I like to see come, man. I mean, anybody in recovery that doesn't currently have a fitness program and would like to see what it's about. A lot of people in recovery are afraid to do something exercise-wise because of the selfishness. So they're like, well, I have to focus on others. I can't go focus on me. Well, this is not about you. I don't CrossFit for me. I CrossFit so I'm available and I can actually help you move your couch, or I can go play with my kid in the field, or I could grab my kid and run out of a movie theater if somebody started shooting. That's why I CrossFit. It has nothing to do with me and how I look and what I want.
Whatever it may be.
So by putting it on that level and tying it into these spiritual principles, you realize, like we talked about before, it's not something you can or can't do. It's something you have a freaking obligation to be fit.
And it's a responsibility.
That's it.
Yeah. So it's no longer like, should I go? It's, I have to go.
Yeah.
And not because anybody's making you, it's because you have
It's
to.
part of the deal.
Yeah. That's awesome. No, SobrietyWod, it sounds pretty legit. I'd like to get involved in any way I can. I'll talk to you about it after as well, but that sounds awesome. Yeah.
We'll get it rolling and cranked up. I think that people will enjoy it, and it's going to be a whole new outlook on fitness, sobriety, what it can be like, what it's about. It gets deep. Yeah,
how they tie together.
But I mean, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. That sounds really awesome. So we'll wrap it up, right? Final 2 questions. So first, so say you have 3 things that are must-haves. It could be ideas or principles, but what 3 things would you say are most important for living a good life or a great life? If you had to tie it down to 3.
Purpose. really purpose, friendship, and principles. I mean,
Those are three.
I think that's
That
good,
guided you.
man.
Yeah, those are your three good ones for sure.
I guess you could, let's do the 3 Ps, purpose, people, and principles,
Hey,
man.
that's good. 3 Ps. I like
That's
it.
it.
Purpose, people, principles. Okay. And you can see how they shape, your journey and how you got there. So I can tell they're really important to you for sure. Okay, so final question. But before I get to the final question, I just want to acknowledge you for a minute. Say, first, thanks for coming on the show. Also, thank you for all the stuff you're doing in the community. With CrossFit. I've seen how it could. I've been a part of CrossFit, but I've seen how you're doing it and how you have a community here where you've grown a community of people that want to get better and they're better themselves. You're helping teach them how to live a better life in and outside of the gym. And then now with SobrietyWod and where that's going, I think that's really powerful as well. So, I just want to say thank you and acknowledge you for that.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been great. So, so the final question is one sentence, right? So you have one sentence to be remembered by forever. This is how your loved ones, everybody else for the history of time will remember you. And all you have is one sentence. What would that sentence be?
I think I've thought about it before, like tombstone type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good man.
He was a good man. That's good. Josh, appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, man.